this hobby is amazing fun, you know. And that quartet, I thought, right, I'm going to see how quick I can do it, and I did it I think I did it in about 10 days, which is
Brilliant.
This talk was the most watched at Virtual Stampex 2025. Over to you, Bill.
in many ways, as I say, it's a familiar story, but it's a story that I tell in a very different way. This exhibit has grown very organically over a long period of time, as has my knowledge. My my journey starts at the city when I was born in Bristol, and this kind of picture takes me back many years. That's me at the right, with um, in more hairy times. That's my father standing very proud in the middle, my late father, and at the left is a collector there. I was very lucky growing up in Bristol. There were lots and lots of lots and lots of stamp dealers, probably 10 dealers that myself and my father could plague. My father got very much into plating the penny red, and I followed a little less enthusiastically with the penny red. Um, this picture shows us all at Stampex in the late 1980s. Not really expecting at this time to be the major dealer that I've become, and certainly not expecting to be the collector and exhibitor that has evolved. Okay, so the early start of the collection is just focused on penny reds. I then start to acquire a few better pieces, including, as we'll see later, a very famous May the 6th penny black first day usage, ex Burris. And Stockholmia 2019 gives me the opportunity to put 5 frames together at semi-international level. I put 5 frames together, and it is judged at gold medal level, which encourages me greatly. Before we charge on through the exhibit, I just want to explain a little bit about how I see exhibiting, um, because I've seen thousands of exhibits all over the world. Some of them are wonderful, telling great stories. Some have great introductions. Some don't have conclusions. Now, for me, an exhibit is the same as telling a story. You know, with a beginning, you have to have a beginning. You have to have a strong narrative, a strong story that is connected all the way through, and then you have an ending. Now, the problem was where I felt, where do I start my exhibit? Where do I finish my exhibit? What are the bookends? So I chose the Napoleonic Wars, the French Revolutionary Wars, which led directly to postal inflation, and there was a relatively easy final bookend, which was when Perkins Bacon lose the printing contract to Delarue in 1818. So we're going to go back to the Napoleonic Wars and the um, French Revolutionary Wars. And you're saying, what has that got to do with the penny black and the penny red? It's got a lot to do with the story. Um, in government acts, various government acts, 1796, 97, 1801, 1812, I was amazed to discover through James Grimwood's remarkable publication on international postal reform, which I recommend to every serious postal historian. I was amazed to discover that 25%, yes, a quarter of all post office revenue was not paid back to the post office or the Inland Revenue, as was at the time, but it went to the Majesty's Exchequer to pay off part of the national debt for the costs of the wars. So we saw on those two letters very high postal charges. Now, in Great Britain in the 1830s, there was a big drive for reform, political reform, educational reform, workplaces reform, and that was also reflected in a push for postal reform. This was originally driven by Robert Wallace, MP for Greenock, who um, in in the 1830s stood up in Parliament as a member of Parliament and said, "This service is not fit for purpose. We must have postal reform." He was later joined by Rowland Hill, and indeed it was Rowland Hill who was the main driver for postal reform, who encouraged the setup of the Mercantile Committee in 1837, um, which was a group of London merchants who funded together to promote postal reform, and they produced such documents as you see here, um, proposals for proposals for um, items to prepay postage, and put pressure through public meetings to organise postal reform. This is somewhat difficult, not being able to control the slides, I must say. However, um, the Mercantile Committee kept pushing for postal reform, and in 1839 we have a Penny Post Act, um, which which empowered the Treasury to reduce the postage. This is a newspaper. Now, I don't put many examples of newspapers into the exhibit because the judges are very unappreciative of what we call borderline items in exhibit. If you're exhibiting, you've got to be very careful not to include more than one, maybe two, what we call borderline items, i.e., strictly non-philatelic items in your display. Rowland Hill then organises a competition in 1839, the Treasury competition, where men of letters and scientists are invited to submit proposals for a instrument that will receipt the payment of the postal service. Here we see two of the most celebrated submissions. One by James Chalmers of Dundee, where he introduces the concept of an adhesive label with a cancellation, and another is a block of four of a very rare submission by James Bogardus. There are only two blocks of four in existence, and that one we saw there was ex Buranam Sombati collection. The drive for postal reform is left totally in the hands of Rowland Hill, and he decides, I suspect rather subconsciously and in retrospect, that three main stages of postal reform are needed. The first stage, which is introduced on the 5th of December 1839, is the introduction of a uniform four-penny post. Now, this remarkable document, and it's believed unique, is a postmaster's notice, which introduces the whole concept of the uniform four-penny post, which we see on the next page with a first day. It's a very rare first day usage. You can see it's sent from Glasgow on December the 5th, 1839 to Ayr, and it's been charged fourpence. Now, very unusually, it's got a hand stamp for used on the first day. Very few officers had a hand stamp for ready for the first day. This uniform fourpenny post lasted until the 9th of January 1840, and this is an example used on the last day. Again, a hand stamp used on the 9th of January. If the writer had waited until the next day, next slide please, which was the 10th of January 1840, he wouldn't have had to pay a penny. Wouldn't have had to pay fourpence. He would have paid a penny for a letter not exceeding half an ounce. This is that was that was a rare postal notice in introducing the second stage of postal reform, which was the uniform penny post on the 10th of January. This is a very nice matched pair, if you like, of covers used on the first day of the uniform penny post, which is January the 10th, 1840. The top cover is post paid, so it's a penny paid, and the other cover to the lower right has not been prepaid, so it's been surcharged twopence. So it's a very nice pair of covers. It's a pity they're not from the same correspondence, but there we go. Third stage of postal reform was Roland Hill's quest to find a suitable receipt for a postal fee paid. So rumour has it that he sits in the back of a hansom cab. There's nothing to support that really, and he comes up with the design that we're all very familiar with, and the concept of the postage stamp with gum on the back that you stick on a letter to confirm that you've paid your penny. But where did the design come from? Well, the design for the stamp came from.
There are more virtual Stampex talks coming to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss out.
The head is taken from the 1837 William Wine Medal that celebrated the Queen's visit to the city. If you see on the left, it's a bit dark, but you can clearly see the Queen's head. That is the very design that was used for the penny black, twopenny blue, penny red, and the halfpenny and the penny halfpenny. All of the what we call the low value printing contract stamps. The background of the stamp was taken for that from the centre band of that banknote proof that you can see on the right in red. The two proofs on the left are proofs of the unaccepted design for the stamps. The as we see on the next item, the upper the upper five proofs were considered too light in background, and it was the lower five uh, with the greater contrast that were accepted for the penny black. That is a remarkable it's a remarkable proof. There are only four copies. This is ex Brianon Sombati. There's a little tear somewhere on it, but it's an amazing thing. And I remember as a kid seeing a Robson Low auction catalogue in the 1970s and seeing a copy. I don't know whether it was this example or not, and seeing a copy of this on the front page of a Robson Low auction catalogue, and falling in love with that whole concept of printing at that time. Amazing item. So we now have the design for the penny black, the head and the background, which are brought together, and the penny black is issued, as we all know, on the 6th of May, 1840. This is original. This is an original postal notice which is sent out to postmasters advising of the stamp with two impressions affixed at upper left. It also this would also be accompanied by the more eddies. This is ex Klemke collection, um, one of 11 examples that are believed to exist, and is a very rare piece. It's very interesting. I've just come back from the International in Uruguay 2025, where this exhibit, or the whole exhibit, because what I'm showing you today is a small selection of the pages, where this exhibit won a large gold. And one of the I always listen to what the judges say. I don't follow their advice a lot. Sometimes I do, but it was quite interesting. This judge in Uruguay, he said, "Well, Bill, so it's quite remarkable." He said, "You've got too many postmasters notices." And I thought, well, that's a crazy thing to say. And I said to him, I said, well, that shows really that you really haven't understood the exhibit, because the postmasters notices that I've shown you so far, which is December the 5th, January the 10th, and the penny black. Firstly, it's the first time I've ever seen all three together in the same exhibit. And secondly, they're produced by the post office, so they're not borderline in any sense, and that they are incredibly important signposts as we walk through this narrative. This is probably this is probably the most significant item in terms of exhibit development that I acquired. It was acquired quite a few years ago. I've been wondering about, oh, do I buy a penny black first day? I mean, they're a lot of money, but this one came on the market, four margins, with what I particularly liked about it is that the red ink of the Cornhill hand stamp the Maltese cross and the back stamp are all the same. The stamp is clearly tied. It's a little bit close at right, but it's clearly four margins, and it's got a good pedigree. Ex Sugden and Burris. It's one of the finest in existence. So this acquisition was the kind of key thing really that encouraged me to exhibit. So we have the penny black issued. There's a selection of multiples from plate 1B. Plate 2, that is not actually a block of 12. It's a stunning item, but it's two blocks of 6 that were originally a block of 12 on the sheet that have been cut and used on a enormous wrapper from Ottery St Mary in Devon to Bristol. I've actually got the original wrapper as well, but it's a beautiful piece. This is a most interesting usage, which is a turned cover, which has gone from London to Saxmundham, which is the lower half of the letter, dated March the 11th. With it's addressed to solicitors, and it was originally have contained a bag of legal a whole pile of legal papers. Um, it was then turned and sent back to the original writer in London, but without the contents. So it went at the penny rate. So it's a remark. It's one big sheet of paper which has been reused with the world's first two stamps on. Um, Very unusual. It's some penny blacks from plate 10. Plate 10 is particularly difficult to find as a multiple. Now, this lower cover, a bit of a tragedy, really. Um, it's its pedigree. It was in the collection of Major General Sir Leonard Atkinson, who's I knew him. I met him quite a few times in the 80s. In fact, I'm going to be talking about some of the famous collectors I've met over the past years when I do a round table. That lower cover, when it was sold in the Major General Sir Leonard Atkinson sale in Robson Low in 1990, it was a strip of 6. Now, some idiot as the sixth stamp at the right was slightly damaged, and some idiot has cut off the sixth stamp and trimmed the wrapper. I say an idiot because uh, that strip of 6 at the time was the largest known used multiple from plate 10, which is just sacrilege, really. Okay, so what was the penny black a success? It looks to be a great success, but in fact it wasn't that successful. It was only in use for 9 months, and very early on, the Inland Revenue, who were always obsessed by fraud, found that people could reuse the penny black by removing the red cancellation. This is a most unusual contemporary document advising post office clerks what to do if they spotted a fraudulent stamp. Two examples of fraudulent reuse where the post office clerks have followed the guidance. They've on the left one particularly, they've crossed the stamp through, written old stamp, and they've charged twopence. The cover on the right, they haven't crossed the stamp through as they should have done, but they've applied the OS, i.e. old stamp. When they say old, they're not just referring to a very old stamp, i.e. 1840. They're referring to it as an old stamp as having been reused. Now, the Inland Revenue were very concerned about this, so they conducted a series of colour trials called the so-called rainbow trials, called rainbow because of the number of colours that exist. There's a couple of sheets of 12 there, and a nice pair at upper right which show attempt at cancellation removal. Following these trials, the Inland Revenue decided to change the colour of the stamp from black to red and the cancellation from red to black. This is another postmaster's notice. Sorry to bore you with all the postmaster's notices, but I kind of think they're really important. A postmaster's notice introducing the penny red. Next page, please. With the introduction of the penny red, the first penny reds were from the black plates, and it is possible to match pairs. So you can find a black penny black, and a penny red, same plate, same lettering. But I thought, let's see if we can go one better. Let's do a match quartet. So if you look at the lower four, you'll see that the stamp at the right, which is plate 8, lettered Bravo Delta, is a penny red with a red Maltese cross. So I thought, well, let's be clever and smart. Let's see if we can not just match it up with a black Maltese cross, but get a quartet. And it took me a fortnight, which I thought was pretty good. It took me a fortnight, and I found all four: a penny black with a red Maltese cross, a penny black with a black Maltese cross, penny red with a black Maltese cross, and of course the red with the red Maltese cross. Why not have a go at doing it yourself? But you'll have, if you're going to go for a quartet, you must start with the red on red combination, because that's by far the rarest. Similarly, if you're trying to match a plate 11, which you see at upper right there, AK, don't start with the red. Start with the black and then get the red. This is interesting. When I was in Uruguay, a chap called Prakob Chirikiti, who is the president of Federation International Philately, very important organization. Well, I recognised him and I introduced myself, and he said, "Oh, I want to. I got a question, Bill. In an exhibit at the show, I saw a page of stamps with the Queen's head facing to the right, but I thought all Queen's heads were facing to the left on the stamps." And I realised he was talking about this page from my exhibit. So we had a fascinating 10 minutes about, I explained to him how various chemical reactions which occurred during the printing process resulted in the um, varying uh, varying strong definitions on reverse of the Queen's head, and how that album page was in fact the stamps um, reversed on the back. And he was really quite fascinated by that. So when the penny red was introduced, it should have been cancelled with a black Maltese cross, but you do see it with a red Maltese cross from, I don't know, 20 offices. The upper cover here um, is from Ermbridge, and you can clearly see, no, it's not, I lie, it's from Maryport. Ermbridge was another village which used the red Maltese cross, and you can clearly see it's a red with a red Maltese cross, very rare combination, very nice. Both those covers are cancelled on July the 4th. One's a red with a red Maltese cross, the other is a red with the black Maltese cross. I'm reserving a spot for a third cover used on July the 4th, 1841, with, guess, yep, a blue Maltese cross. It's a lovely group of imprimaturs, although the judges do criticise me for putting it on a different style of paper. It was I bought it intact. The subsequent plates, 102, 103, 104 to 111, and it was on a very old style um, exhibit page, and I thought, well, that's nice, I'll keep it as is. But the judges don't like that. They like formality, I suppose. Ah, here we are. Right. Perkins Bacon were master printers, but they did make the odd mistake. And on die 1 plate 77, this is not die 2 plate 77, which is the very rare letters in all four corners issue. On die 1 plate 77, they omitted to insert the A in the lower right corner square. It's called the B blank A error, and it is the first great. I mean, it's a fantastic variety. 28 examples are recorded, one of which is on cover, which belongs to a collector in the USA. There's 5 on piece, 22 singles. This is the only one known used in Ireland, and it is considered the finest example. It was not. This error should have been spotted when they checked the imprimatur sheets, which were there to check that the print the plates were okay for use. But it was not spotted. It was not initially spotted. It was subsequently spotted, and they went back to the plate and inserted the A. And the example at right is the B blank A corrected. So that is a superb error. The next few pages are superb mint blocks, with marginal inscription and corner plate numbers. Plate 92, plate 101. Okay, so all of those stamps prior to that have been separated by scissors. So time consuming and leads to quite a lot of damaged stamps. So in the late 1840s, several enterprising individuals attempted rouletting of stamps by machinery or by some form of tool. This cover here is quite remarkable. It's called the Glen Mavis Distillery, and it's they came on the market in the late 1980s at a Robson Lowe auction. There was a big correspondence found in Scotland of covers from the Glen Mavis Distillery to James Mathie Esquire, writer, Stirling. And of all the covers, only three show a rouletting. You can't particularly see it here, but it is very, very clear. And it's a most unusual small type of roulette. A second type of roulette that we're probably all more familiar with is the Treasury or Gladstone roulette, so called because the first example was discovered when Gladstone was Chancellor of the Exchequer. This is a most unusual page with some rare items. At left is a mint treasury roulette. All of these have got certificates. What I would say is that the quality of this exhibit is of the very highest. You could put most of the used stamps in water, you would not find any problems. There's one of the penny black covers is slightly cut into, but I've been very, very careful uh, what I've acquired over the years with an accent on quality and rarity. So anyway, the upper left is one of only three unused treasury roulettes that are recorded. The middle pair is a most attractive used pair, although they are rejoined, but they were originally used together. Very rare multiple, although there is a block of four known on cover. Upper right is a basic single. Can we just go back to, yeah, and the cover at foot is a fantastic cover. I saw it years ago in a Robson Lowe magazine, um, and it's the only known combination of a penny in Perth and a treasury roulette. Never thought I'd have the pleasure of owning that. So those were unofficial attempts at perforation. We're now looking at the attempts of Henry Archer, who was an Irishman who applied the concept of perforation, which in itself was not a new concept. Postal fiscals had been perforated, and of course, checkbooks were perforated to separate. But he applied the concept of perforation to stamps very successfully. After he attempted to separate by roulette, there's a pair of his Archer unsuccessful roulettes at upper left. There's a stunning Mint Blocker 6 Archers from plate 98 at lower left. And on the right is a most unusual cover where you've got a strip of three penny in Perfs, and at the left you've got a single Archer. Apparently 8 such combination covers are recorded. I mean, all my data, such as 4 known, 8 known, I have generally come from Carl Louis of Corin Feeder Auction House in Switzerland, who I know very well. He loves this exhibit, and he's been very helpful with his to share his knowledge. Print, Henry Archer was not just satisfied with successful perforation of the stamps. He wanted to win the whole printing contract from Perkins Bacon, and with that in mind, he produced a series of essays called the Prince Consort Essays in various colours. The example at top is in blue. Only three exist. One example is in the Royal Collection. The second example is the National Postal Museum, and that third example is the only one in private hands. It's got a very small thin on the back, so not everything is perfect, but it's a lovely looking item. Then we've got examples in black, perforated, and imperforated, and red brown, and brown. Although his quote for printing and perforation was cheaper than Perkins Bacon, he did not win the contract. So we proceed on with the Inland Revenue negotiate with Henry Archer, and they buy his perforation patents. And in 1854, we see the world's first officially perforated stamps. There's some very nice mint blocks there, including that top block, the left marginal inscription, which is ex-Sir Leonard Atkinson collection. At this time, we have the introduction of perforation, but we also see postal clerks using up imperforate stamps. Covers which have a combination of imperforate and perforate stamps are very rare. And there's only, and Carl Louis only records 14 examples. So all of these are perforation 16. That's two stunning corner blocks showing remarkable bluing at the edges of the printed image, and also plate number, reserve 5, a marginal inscription in the margin. Right, so all of those previous stamps were perforation 16, which is 16 perforations per 2 centimeter width of stamp, issued in 1854. In early 1855, Somerset House, who were responsible for perforation, the stamps were printed by Perkins Bacon, and then Somerset House perforated them. The Somerset House introduced a second perforation comb, perforation 14. Now, mint singles are rare. Blocks of 4 virtually don't exist. So I was absolutely amazed when a couple of years ago I was offered this mint block of 50 from plate 200 with the perforation 14. Can we lower the page a little bit, please, Suzanne? Sorry, raise it. There's some, maybe there's no. Okay, the whole history of this block is known, but you're going to have to buy the book, I'm afraid, because it's not on this page. It first appeared in about 1910 in an auction by Puttock and Simpson. It then was handled by Charles Nissen and then Harmer's. And then it disappeared in 1966, and everyone thought it had been split up, as unfortunately has happened. It's been the fate of so many key pieces. It wasn't split up, fortunately, and it was offered to me by a dealer who knew I was interested, and I said, yes, 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 please. It's a fantastic piece. Part of the original gum is missing, but it's gorgeous colour. That's one of my favourite items in the exhibit. Okay, at 1855, we've got the introduction of perforation, and we have two major developments. The original die, which was used for the penny black, is now starting to wear. So Perkins Bacon commissioned the original die to be re-engraved, so that the Queen's lines and the overall engraving is strengthened, and we have plates from 1855 made using this new deepened die 2, and we start with plate number 1 again. So we start with die 2, plate 1. These are two very rare die 2 proofs, sorry, not ploofs, proofs. The one in left is in black, and the one in right is in Prussian blue, of which I believe there are only 2 examples known. Being a big fan of these die 2 proofs in different colours, I could not resist the 3 top items. Proof in orange vermilion, cut down, but very rare. Proof in pale rose, and one in deep carmine. I'm just really, I think, missing the one in green, which last surfaced in the Chartwell auction. At the bottom, there's a really nice lower left corner mint block of die 2 plate 1. So this is the first plate made with the recut um, die. At the same time as we see the introduction of die 2, we also see a change in the watermark from small crown, which has been used on all those printed hitherto, to the introduction of a much larger watermark, the large crown. This is used to as an aid against forgery.
There are more virtual Stampex talks coming to YouTube. Subscribe to our channel now so you don't miss out.
Some nice multiples from die 2, all perforated issues with the penny stars in the upper corners, with sheet margins and margin inscription, are very rare. I've seen very few mint multiples from this period. The block at upper left was one acquired by my late father, and it's ex-Dr. Wiggins collection. Sometimes as a collector, you just got to be persistent. Now this remarkable piece with 38 die 2 penny plate 13 is cancelled with the OXO cancellation used by the British Army when it was fighting the Crimean War, and this OXO cancellation plus another cancellation was applied on most mail from Constantinople, and it's a remarkable piece. If the upper four that unfortunately have been removed because there's a major re-entry there. They've unfortunately been removed. But if the upper four were there, it is actually paying a correct rate for a large package out to a soldier in the Crimea. Okay. I used to run a stamp shop in Christmas Steps in Bristol, which was quite a lonely experience. And I remember one day a Sotheby's auction catalogue came flooding through the letterbox, and in this auction, this would have been late 1980s, I suppose. In this auction was a quite a large accumulation of mint blocks such as these and singles of die 1 penny stars and die 2 penny stars, all overprinted. Frank Ives Scudamore, Chief Examiner. Now, these had never been seen on the penny reds before. There is a mint block, I think, of 20 on the Toppenny Blues, which, if you're interested, I've got in stock at the moment. There's also a couple of singles with of the shilling green embossed with part Frank Ives Scudamore, Chief Examiner hand stamps. But this Sotheby's auction caused quite a quite quite a disturbance. Well, not a disturbance, no, caused quite an issue because nobody really knew much about them. Robson Lowe wrote an article on them in one of his journals. Nobody really knew what they were worth, so that they didn't sell quite as much as for quite what they were worth. And so I took the opportunity to buy as many blocks as I could. Most of them I sold on as blocks. This is one I kept, which is from die 2 plate 2. It's a most remarkable item. And then I was delighted at a later date. A good friend of mine, fellow dealer Andrew Lager, offered me the piece of post office headed paper that you can see at right, which is underneath the image of the block, which has Inland Revenue embossed at the top, and at the bottom is a genuine signature of Frank Ives Scudamore, which I think goes with the hand stamp incredibly well. Incredible item, this. It was found at the British Philatelic Exhibition in London by Robson Lowe in 1947 in the stock of all people, Ronald Alcock, who was a specialist line engraved dealer based in Cheltenham. And apparently, Robson Lowe was at the exhibition looking over the shoulder of a fellow collector who he knew, who was interested in ship letters, maritime mail. And this collector was looking at this cover because it was a maritime letter going from Exeter in Devon to Australia with a hand stamped one for local um, delivery in Australia. But Robson Lowe must have had very sharp eyes because he saw immediately that that strip of six was not just a basic penny red imperf strip of six from one of the early plates, but it was a die two penny strip of six that should have been perforated. So it's a remarkable thing. Strip of six, penny, die two, plate two, error imperforate, used on cover to Australia. So Robson Lowe asked the collector, "Are you going to buy that item?" The collector said no. He then asked Alcock, "Do you mind if I buy it?" Alcock said, "Yep, you can have it." So Robson Lowe bought the item, um, and then he put it into one of his auctions a few months later. And this is in the mid. No, no, not a few months later. Can't remember actually. And it's he sold it. He sold it for £600, £650 in I think the 1960s or something. And it hadn't been seen for years and years and years, and it came up in a spink auction where a dealer, I was the underbidder. I bid it up to I think 10 or 11,000. I didn't get it. The dealer John Taylor, smart man, knew what a great piece it was. He sent it to me next day, but I had to decline because I just couldn't afford it. And I thought it was lost. And then it came up in a continental auction, and I had the chance to buy it, which I seized at it. And it's interesting that Robson Lowe, if you look in his Encyclopedia of British Empire postage stamps, he says, "Here is possibly the rarest piece known in line engraved Great Britain." Well, I think there are several pieces have eclipsed it since, but it's certainly the great piece of middle period line engraved GB. A lovely mint block of this is penny stars. This is not letters in all four corners, which you do see in mint blocks. This is penny stars, plate 48, beautiful, stunning cover, ex Chartwell. Now, Chartwell is a pseudonym of a major industrialist who lived in Northamptonshire, who um, put together an absolutely exceptional collection of GB and British Commonwealth, and it was all stored in a safe in his office in his industrial place in Northampton. And because these items didn't see the light, the colour, the freshness of the multiples is superb. And I've got half a dozen pieces that I bought in that auction, which the colour's amazing. This is interesting. A bit of original research here by me, which I don't do very often. But I bought an old original and I looked at it. And at the upper left, I could see little pool marks above the design. And I thought, modern reprint looks original. Look, but modern reprint, I don't know. So I sent it up to the RPS, and I imagine Chris Harmon, who's so knowledgeable on all matters Perkins Bacon. I imagine Chris Harmon must have looked at it. He said it's okay. I thought, right, okay, that's fine. I like, um, sometimes you need a cert, and I think on these I was just a little bit unsure because of the marks outside the design. Then another one came up a little bit later, which also had the same marks on. I thought that's interesting, so I then started to look at these old originals in greater detail, and I found that the one on the left um, was a much stronger impression than the one on the right, and the one on the right had marks. If you look at the center image on the of the Queen's face, you can see quite a few spots. Now, what has happened is that the plate from which these proofs have been pulled was obviously not looked after very well, and it started to corrode, and you have rust spots on it. Those rust spots subsequently took ink. So this kind of led me to a certain conclusion. Over the years, people have said, "Oh, the old originals, we don't know when they were printed or what they were printed for," and we still don't really know for what the reasons they were printed for. But what you can do is that you can put them within the time frame 1860 to 1871, and with the presence of or the absence of corrosion spots, you can say, well, that is an earlier printing or a later printing. So it's they're really, it's worth, if you've got an old original, if you've got one, have a look at it, see if it's a little bit of blurred design at upper left, and see if it's got corrosion spots on. This is again one of my favourite pieces. Um, Early 1850s, the Inland Revenue ordered an examination of 100,000 stamps to see how many fraudulent reuse stamps there were. They found two. So there wasn't, it's not as if there was massive fraud going on, but the Inland Revenue were not happy. So that eventually resulted in the change in the design from letters in the lower squares and cross pate in the upper squares to letters in all four corners. But this is a very interesting and genuine usage of a genuine fraudulent reusage. If you carefully look at the stamp on the cover, if you look at you can see a tear down the middle. Well, it could be two halves of two stamps put together. But if you look at the bottom there, you can see how the word penny is spelt. It's spelt Papa Echo, Echo, November, November, Yankee. Now, in my grammar school days, penny only had one E. So someone has taken two uncancelled parts of stamps, put them back together to reuse it, but they haven't aligned the word penny that well. Superb. It's the best I've ever seen. Best I've ever, a fantastic usage. Um, Inland Revenue still full of paranoia for postal fraud. Um, employ a skillful engraver to see if he could reproduce the stamps. And there's only three proofs known. Again, one's in the Royal Collection, one is in the Postal Museum, and this is the third example, ex Chartwell. So fueled by this paranoia of perceived lost income, the Inland Revenue commissioned Perkins Bacon to change the design from check letters in the lower squares and stars in the upper squares to check letters in all four corners, and also insert the plate numbers in the side of the design at both sides, which is the issue that a lot of us will be much more familiar with, and of course is the issue that gives us plate 77 and the rare plate 225. As ever, I'm always looking for covers that have kind of double value, if you like. Now, this one at lower left, I call is such a double value cover because not only does it show redirection, it shows Liverpool and Dublin different star numerals, but it also shows, more importantly, the two different styles of design, where the first stamp I think is, can't really see it. The first stamp is the penny star, which has been used at Liverpool. Then it's been redirected, and someone has put on the replacement design. Now, Carl Louis, my good friend at Corinth, tells me only 17 such covers exist. 70. It's not many. We're now reaching the end of the story, and I never really thought I'd be interested in the letters in all four corners, but as you put together a story, you need that bookend at the you need that bookend, and there's no doubt about it that the letters in all four corners, which were the last stamps that Perkins Bacon printed before they lost the contract to Perkins Bacon, are an important issue. So I sought a few interesting items, and the block at right is the 1867 Paris exhibition proof in black. And this is quite remarkable. I'm amazed that it exists still. Is the original blocker 20, plate 103, in black on soft white card, imperforate, that was sent to the Paris exhibition. Ex Osborne, who was a major pioneer in all things Tottenham blue. The block at the bottom there is from plate 225, the very last plate Perkins Bacon made. It's a stunning mint block with, as you can see, plate number in the lower right corner, and it's beautiful fresh colour. Ex-Chartwell. It's been sat in that safe in Northampton for 20, 30 years, I guess. So there's towards the late 1870s, Perkins Bacon were under pressure to produce more stamps in more colours in doubly fugitive inks, and they conducted various colour trials. There's two examples here. The one on the left is in purple, ex Harold Fisher collection, and the one on right is in rose red, which is ex the Royal collection. Uh, bad purchase that. I paid far too much for it, but I thought, oh, let's have something from the Royal collection. But that was not one of my best decisions. But they sit well on the page, but ultimately Perkins Bacon could not produce. They could not produce enough singly or doubly fugitive inks for the needs of stamps in all sorts of different values. And in 1880, Perkins Bacon lose the contract to Delarue. The wonderful penny black and penny red were replaced by what I think is quite a dull stamp. Sorry, Howard. The 1880 1D Phoenician red. But you know, I have to finish the story, so I introduced the stamp that replaced my lovely line engraved issues, and I show that with a die proof, a color chart, an imprimatur. And then at the right is a fascinating menu card which shows all of the penny stamps issued during the reign of Queen Victoria, which was it's a menu card used to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the penny post in 1890. And the very last item in the exhibit, which is really quite controversial, is a collage from circa 1890, which shows that even when the stamps had been designed, printed, used, cancelled, and kind of thrown away, they still had a use in an art form. So that brings us to the end of the RPSL display, which they reward. The display went very well at the RPS, and they handed me thanks, Bill. And then I took it down to Uruguay last month, and I was delighted to get a large gold. Uruguay was a very interesting show, successfully commercially for us. To get a large gold at Uruguay was significant. The standard of the exhibits was very, very high, and in fact, 38% of all exhibits got gold or above. And my last slide in this display is, if you're interested in the full display, then I do have a book available, which is £35 plus postage, but I haven't got many left. It's a superb book, and it illustrates all the items you've seen here, plus many, many more. Thank you very much for listening. Thanks. Bye-bye.
We hope to see you at our next Stampex show, at Virtual Stampex or in person in London. There are more Virtual Stampex talks coming to YouTube. You know what to do. Click subscribe now so you don't miss out. See you soon.